Hey guys, we
Hi,
are live. The broadcast is live. I'm going to turn it over to Angela Stalker. I got one thing to do. Go ahead, Angela.
Yolanda is busy. She's so busy, she can't even kick this show off. So I'm Angela Stalkup. That's Yolanda Lattimore, aka Dryer Buzz, and this is Leading Women Weekly, a podcast all about women, women leading women, and things that are going on in the world that really affect us all. Today, we're going to be talking about the idea of hidden women. And of course, for anyone who is watching the recording, because we do record this as a podcast, it is June 7th, 2020. And so we are at the end of nearly 2 weeks of protests and demonstrations against police brutality related to sparked by the George Floyd murder, but certainly representative of far more than that. And so we'll be talking about information and incidents related to that. Particularly, we're going to be looking, as always, about how women are often at the center of things, but we don't always see them. So that's what we're going to be talking about. If you are, share this. We encourage you to share this with your audiences, and if you have comments, jump on, because we really want to hear what you're doing. And one of the things before I kick it back to Yolanda, that I think is really significant, and why I wanted to mention the date, is that things are
Mhm.
happening so quickly. This is an unprecedented experience, not just probably in our lifetimes in the 100 years, but also for the use of social media, digital media. We are seeing things that we've never seen. So it's being worked out on the ground right now by
Mhm.
by citizen journalists, by journalists, by brands across the board. And so, whatever used to be the old right way, it's probably checked out the window. So if you're finding things that are
Oh, yeah.
working, if you're engaging people, if you're seeing things that aren't working, we'd love to hear about it either now live today, or feel free to hit us up on our page, Leading Women Podcast on Facebook. We're also Leading Women Weekly on Twitter. We want to hear what's working for you, or again, what you just are looking at and saying, this is absolutely not working. So anyway, I'm going to kick
Mhm.
it back to the producer, soap maker, queen of the kitchen, long time citizen
Mm.
journalist, activist,
Mm.
Yolanda Lattimore, Dryer Buzz.
All that. All of that, right? Oh my goodness. And as I was my goal was to be here on time, but then I'm like, wait, I forgot to put the turkey in the oven because I heard it preheat right as we were ready to go live. And I said, okay, well, I got to do that. But I also wanted to show that part because oftentimes as we watch each other through these small lenses, we assume that we all have it together and we've all got all kind of duties. And we take time out of those duties or away from those duties to do what we do. And one, Merriam-Webster posted their word of the day, and I don't know if it was today or I just saw it trending. I don't know if it was trending. I saw one person shared on my timeline. It was advocate. It was
Mm,
advocate, and I think, and somebody said, "Oh man, your timing is perfect," because what we have witnessed this week, what maybe 2 weeks, has been advocates taking to the streets, and we wish that it didn't have to take to the streets. Also, it's Pride Month, so you're seeing a lot of the leadership in the protests change over a little bit. So
mm-hmm,
there's just a lot going on. But I woke up this morning thinking, Angela, in marketing and in content creation, you always create with kind of a persona in mind,
mm-hmm.
if not
Yeah.
an actual individual, somebody from your audience. And whenever I create a piece of content or if I think about something, I'm literally going into the mind of that person that has let me know that they're watching, that they're listening, and that they are, and I'm producing at the same time, that they're watching and they're listening. And I write with them in mind. I make soap with them in mind. I come in the kitchen, I'm like, oh, I mean, like, if you think about how many times I've made lemonade, and I
Mm-hmm.
made some lemonade live today for doing this. It's actually right here steeping on the stove, and I should have fixed me a glass. But you do it with somebody in mind. So I woke up today and I was thinking about where we are in 2020. Everybody's been trying to figure out, my God, what is this 2020, right? But to know where we are, we got to take a look back. And I like
Mm-hmm.
going back 100 years. You
I'm
know,
with you.
I mean, that's just a nice start, right? So I got to
Hmm.
thinking about 1920, and the minute you say 1920, you know that that was a
Yeah.
pivotal time of our country, right? When it was the Great Migration, and when I went to look for an image, I'm like, oh, I just want to see what did that look like at that time,
Hmm.
because recently we watched the Madam C.J. Walker not documentary movie, because it was highly on the entertainment side, and it went back to the beginnings of the Harlem Renaissance and so forth and so on, and even actually before then. But just thinking about the 1920s, I think my grandmother. I remember. I think my grandmother was born. I'm talking about my grandmother was born around 1918. I believe either
Hmm.
1916 or 1918, and I wanted to like get an image, and I remember seeing photos of her and my grandfather, and really you couldn't really tell the difference of the day, but I needed to see that to put in mind. And I found this article from Time Magazine some years ago, where they talked about and quickly said the forgotten girls. And I'm
Mm.
like, because when we look at a lot, even when we go back and look at 2020 and this March and those, the women are often hidden, they're often silenced. And what I loved about the Time Magazine piece is the reason they were able to chronicle these girls was because they had their experiences in their voice.
Mm.
Okay, letters that they had written to a media outlet, nonetheless, that talked about this migration happening. And I know when I started Dryer Buzz, I modeled it after Jet Magazine.
Mm.
So, this is like pulling me in and pulling me in. But I was thinking about that 14-year-old. How many times do we say, particularly as women, what would you say to your younger self?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You know, well, what would you say to yourself in a past life? When I thought about it, I was reading the letters, and they were asking for, hey, okay, if I leave the South, escaping Jim Crow at 14, a 14-year-old in 1920 was a grown woman.
Well, what
Okay,
could have gotten married? I mean, you
married,
know,
had kids, and all
yeah,
of that. But these were young 14, because my grandmother married, had her first at 12 or 13, right?
yeah. My grandmother's
So
same, 14. Yeah.
yeah, and it was on her second. My grandfather was her second husband. Okay,
Wow. Yeah.
so and we were like the second family, and I remember
Hmm.
discovering that fact at
Wow.
a young age. Like, wait, what is this?
Who are those
We're the
people?
sex. Like, right? Who are these
Mm.
people? Because even though we thought we were all one big happy family, it's like So I'm reading these letters of these 14-year-olds. They're talking about literally going to a place unknown, joining this migration, which, as you know, not only went up north but also went out west.
Hmm.
I remember going to see Pearl Clegg's Flying West play, and I'm like, and that just opened my eyes to something entirely different. We don't know, y'all. We really and truly just don't know. So I'm reading these letters of these 14-year-olds, and they're saying, well, if I leave the South, escaping Jim Crow, what's there for me in the North, and if I come, can you? I mean, literally, can you help me find a job? Is there
Hmm.
prosperity? Is this and that? Having those kind of as safety, am I safe? To
Hmm.
join this next caravan leaving. It is just me, or it's me and the family. It's me and this women having that discussion, leading this movement.
Hmm.
And when we talk about these things, we oftentimes leave those women out who at the time were 14-year-old women. And I'm gonna throw it back to you, but it's on my mind because just yesterday, as you know, I've got some dry bus platforms out there just kind of sitting dormant, and I'm not covering, the protests and so forth. So just yesterday, I handed the keys over to a young woman, a young girl,
Hmm.
18, 19 maybe. Hey, take it.
Mm.
Whatever you need to do. If you need the stories, the TikToks, the this, that, and the other,
Wow.
go with it. Just go. And she was like, "Oh wow, thank you," because she is out there in these protests. She is out
Mm.
there trying to figure out, how do I tell this story.
Right.
and ask me, if I would like this or share that. And I'm like, hey, listen, hey, here's the login. Go for it. It's yours. And to be able to hand that off,
Mm.
that's what girl power is. Now, this is
Yeah.
actually an earring. It's too big for me as an earring, so I just put it on my shirt.
Nice.
But that's what girl power
Mhm.
is. When we
Well,
say, okay, leading women, check in with us. That's who we want to check in. Go ahead.
and it's legacy, right? It's legacy, being able to hand to the next generation.
Yeah,
But it's
yeah.
also very typical of the way women lead, which is we don't try to hoard all the opportunities to ourselves, right? Now it's shared power, it's shared leadership, right? And it's saying, okay, not, and again, I'm not I don't want to get into essentialism, and there are women that don't do this, there are men that do, but in general, when a
Hmm.
group of women get together to do anything, they're like, I'll do this, you do this, you do this. It is absolutely kitchen table planning, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
It's the church lady planning. It's, we're who can do what, let's do it, right? With the objection being the outcome. Women tend to be outcome based, right? Like, how do we get the job done, right? And who cares how it
Ooh,
gets done?
ooh.
Let's get the job done. And that comes out of having to take care of families and take care of kids. And it's like, we just got to keep
Girl,
people
you sound like
alive.
Michelle Obama over there.
Yeah. So
I
we.
mean, literally, those were that's Michelle Obama's exact words when she gave a speech at a conference. And of course,
Mm-hmm.
that's how you and I got together. Our
Right.
love for Michelle Obama. And interesting enough, in that on that time page is a letter of a 14-year-old girl headed to Chicago.
Mm,
And in the continued conversation, it
mm-hmm.
talks about the leading women, leading young girls who ended up going to Chicago, leaving behind, Jim Crow, going to start life in Chicago, and particularly the South Side of Chicago. 100 years ago, these 14-year-old girls going to
Mm-hmm.
Chicago, and here we are at 2020, no doubt looking at a black female vice president
Mm-hmm.
already having had within 100 years
Mm-hmm.
a black female first lady and her family in the White House.
Yep. Yep.
And that's why I call them intentional. These
Mm-hmm.
young women, they didn't just leave and run from the South. They wrote letters. They planned ahead. There was strategy. There was an outcome. They were intentional that I'm going to go north to make for a better life, not just for themselves. You think about, okay, and I'm not even going to say the average 14-year-old girl today, because did you see that little, what was it, 6-year-old girl viral
Mm-hmm.
video? Okay,
Yes.
intentional.
Yes.
Young women are intentional, and people love
Mm-hmm.
to say, oh, they're distracted with this and they're doing it.
Mm-hmm.
No, they are intentional because they are forever processing what's going on around them. They see what's going. That little 6-year-old girl knows. There was another viral video of a young toddler, a near toddler, asking a police officer, "Are you here to shoot us?" And he was trying to reassure her. Now he didn't have the real language to
And
really
he did a
reassure
terrible
her.
job, but yes.
He did a terrible job, but at the same time, I mean, he worked off of what he had.
Yeah.
He's been given a uniform and a badge and a gun
Mm-hmm.
to police a society, but yet and still, he knew to come to her level and try to dialogue with her as best as he could and answer her question. His answer was no. That's not what we do. But he's also been trained to think that she represents something that does something that she does not do. So
That's it.
he
Talk to her
lost
in,
it. Yeah,
in 15 years, right? And
exactly.
what will you say to her? NPR
Yeah.
has a very nice piece. Um, I know I saw it tweeted by Lulu Garcia Navarro, was it Navarro? And about the voices of protest, and it's for young women. And
Hmm.
they had um, uh, organized a protest, and 10,000 people showed up. And so I really do think it's funny that you're talking about 14-year-olds. I was watching footage from, there were so many here in Atlanta. We're here. We're both based in Atlanta, but neither of us living directly in the city. I live about half a mile from Atlanta proper. But there were protests all over the city in little enclaves and whatever. But there was a main
Mhm.
protest downtown, and I was looking at footage of it, and somebody was recording. It would have been one that was downtown, so one that went through downtown, and I think there was one that went from Old Fourth Ward down. I don't remember where it ended. Anyway, it was just
Probably
right down
Jasper by
yeah,
the
main
bridge.
downtown. If you know Atlanta, if you don't know Atlanta,
Mhm.
it's main downtown Atlanta, and started at MLK Center. So I'm looking at you've seen the little marchers, and somebody's got they're recording on the side of the road, and they're chanting like "No justice, no peace," but it sounds like "No justice, no peace, Black
Mhm.
Lives Matter." There were so many young girls, right? And like I'm watching a good 30 seconds. There's so many young people, but particularly young women, that the pitch
Mhm.
of the chant was high. It was like
Right.
high. It was
Soprano.
high pitched, right? And
Right.
I'm like, oh my God, how many? Because I can't halfway
Mhm.
see, and I'm noticing, I'm just seeing people marching, and then I'm hearing just high pitched chants,
Mhm. Mhm.
and I'm like, how old? I'm like, am I looking at the young group? No, the whole street was full of young people. And then occasionally somebody
Mhm.
like, gray hair would go by or whatever. But I thought it really is, it's young women.
Mhm.
It's women. And, there's women of all generations, but we're really seeing young women. And I think that's so interesting to draw that comparison to 100 years ago. We thought
Mhm.
nothing of a 14-year-old getting married, a 14-year-old girl getting married, a 14-year-old going off, a 14-year-old girl going off to make a better life for herself and for her family. To your point,
Mhm.
she's
Mhm.
sending back to the family. And I don't know why we would be shocked that we would see the same thing today. And
Mhm.
and I've said this before, as a culture, we diminish girls, what girls are interested in. Uh, but little girls and teen girls, and like I say, we call them silly or foolish or whatever, and they are serious as heart attacks, right?
Mhm.
And are
Mhm.
able
Mhm.
to drive things. So it's when you start looking for it, you really see, and it is again collaborative. Let's get our group of friends together. Let's do a friend group and let's see what we can do. So
Mhm.
it's very interesting. I wish I had that piece of footage because I was just like,
I know. So
I
I
mean,
can
it
imagine.
was very moving.
And another thing we want to talk about, guys, and again, this is just our weekly check in. And talking about hidden women in this movement. Of course, groundbreaking, earth shaking things happen in with the NFL. And of course, before we even get to the NFL, because you mentioned also what's going on with Serena Williams and her husband,
Mm-hmm.
Alexis Ohanian, who stepped down, he opened up his position with Reddit, okay, which is one of the leading sources of syndication. I don't know how much original content they do. I've
Mm-hmm.
looked away from them for a while, but I know in blogging back in the
Mm-hmm.
day, there were several. There was dig.com, Global Grind, and all those things. If you put a piece of content out there, you would use these places. And I'm got to go back and look and see if Reddit is part of that one in this documentary. But you needed sources like that Drudge
Mm-hmm.
Report, Ready
Mm-hmm.
News Review, all of them. They didn't create original content, but if your content ended up in their on their forums, because back in the day they were based on like threaded forums, right?
And that's
And
yeah,
yeah,
they still
that's
have
what
that. Mm-hmm.
syndication. Okay, that's what syndication was. So they would take all this content from all different places. Well, Alexis Ohanian is who he is simply because he is part founder of Reddit, and he stepped down and is asking that they put a person of color in that position. And I know I said a person of color because it could be black, it could be immigrant.
Mm-hmm.
Listen, but my thing was I think he needed to stay because of the compassion that he does
Mm-hmm.
have. Because
Mm-hmm.
you can put somebody in there just to be representative. We have a lot of that going on right now. We had
Mm-hmm.
it. We have it in media. We have it in politics. We have it in health. We've got it in. And people are questioning now these diversity officers and all these corporations. Everybody seems to have these statements that they're putting out there. And yes, that was a big move. But if the right person doesn't go in there, or if they organically didn't have somebody, like, how do you not have somebody at the table already?
Yeah.
um it's an issue.
Yeah.
And that's, like you said, with men, that's another band-aid on this thing, besides not necessarily an outcome. But one of the reasons we want to really talk about that, you said that Serena is getting taking a hit,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yep.
we liken that to what Kaepernick's girlfriend, the hit that she took, and has kind of really been wiped away from the whole Kaepernick protest, or this position that he's in. But talk about a little bit about what Serena's now facing.
Yeah. So, this we know that Alex, is it Ohanan? How do you say his last name?
Alexis Ohanian, I believe.
I'm totally butchering his name. Alexis Ohanian. We know that
Mm-hmm.
he has very strong positions, right? And probably one reason Serena liked him. But he was a co-founder of the platform Reddit. He's not actively involved in it. He's a very wealthy man from it. He's resigning his board position, but immediately articles came out criticizing Serena, saying that Serena pushed him to do this. Serena
Mm-hmm.
pushed him to
Mm-hmm.
resign. Serena pushed him to put forward a person of color for the board position. And it's like, how would you know? Who even knows? It's not like whispers or say, no, they're just like, oh, clearly she made him do it, right? And
Right.
I say it's the same thing with Kaepernick and Nessa, right? I think her
Mm-hmm.
last name's Diop. It's like, oh, well, clearly this woman over here who's Muslim American, oh, she made you do that, right? So it's so interesting. Again, women
And
over
the
here minding
blame
their
the
own
blame
business.
comes out. It's like the blame comes out so fast,
I
as
mean, like
if,
in a day, yeah.
and more
Like,
less than that, because I remember when the Kaepernick thing, and I think a lot of us even found out about what was going on with Kaepernick, simply because the woman was being attacked. So, that
yeah,
that brought us all to the table. Like, wait, why are they attacking Kaepernick's girlfriend? Oh, they was like, well, she's influencing him to get involved, and never mind the fact that all of this that's going on today was going on then and has been going on forever. Um, that she was forcing him or influencing him to get involved. And I remember when it first started, like, first thing came out, it was like, oh, the dude that looks like Black Jesus, that was the
yeah,
thing. But everybody was like, oh, wait a minute. I think it got serious because when they realized that she was Muslim American
yeah,
and causing an athlete to have to take a stance. The one reason they really wanted to squash this so early on was simply because it was going to make him Muhammad Ali like.
yep,
Okay, that was again was something we saw very early on, and knowing that, because I remember when people were talking about, oh, nobody's going to remember this, it's going to go away, and I'm like, Muhammad Ali, everybody knows I'm Muhammad Ali, and that's when they start to give you that, oh, that's too much power for one person. That's too much. This
mm-hmm.
man has too much power, and that's really why he's not in the NFL,
Yeah,
because he became, it grew to that level of this thing. Because I mean, when you think about it, I mean, he wasn't the only one. In fact, there were other people that were out there saying, listen, there are plenty of athletes for their own reasons that don't stand for the national anthem, be it their beliefs, be it their
mm-hmm.
religion.
Yep,
Why this one guy with just his stance was drawn, because others began to join him. That ended
mm-hmm.
up being a thing. And in order to explain this, the men needing to explain this, and guys, if you're wondering why I'm looking over here, the controls are over here. The men needing to explain it, had they tried to explain it away as the influence of a woman. And I take offense to that. We should all
Yeah.
take offense to that.
Well, and they're calling it the Meghan Markle effect, right? That
Ah,
every time Prince Harry blinks, it's Meghan Markle's fault. And I will point out, let's look at Nessa, Serena, Meghan. What do these women have in common?
besides friendship, right?
Right. Is that we particularly seem to,
Mm.
have an issue with women of color
Who
um,
have a
who
position
have an
and
opinion.
influence.
Right. And it's like,
Hmm.
oh, well, clearly she wears the pants or whatever. And it's like, you don't. And this the thing with Meghan Markle. They talk about, look at how they treat William and Kate, and everything Kate does is just glowy and whatever. And oh, look,
Hmm.
Kate got William to eat more vegetables. And then Meghan
The
is
exact
turning
same
Harry into
thing.
a
Yeah.
vegan, right? I mean, it's like
Yeah.
they could do the exact same thing side by side. So it's so
And they have.
there's often criticism on powerful women with powerful who are partnered with powerful or well-known men, but
Hmm.
particularly
Because the question
add
is,
that layer of being a woman of color, and it's like
right.
she's always going to be to blame. Yeah.
And when you think about it, I don't know that Megan has asked for any kind of power. If you think about it, I really, I think Megan would have been fine where they were in England. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, she uprooted herself. She
Yep.
left her career. She fell in line. Harry has, since the day we've known Harry, has
Mm-hmm.
challenged how he was supposed to exist in his
Yep.
lineage.
Yep.
So again, trying to make it the fault of women. I mean, even going to LA,
Yep.
I mean, I don't even see Megan even living up to her full potential. This power that they say she's wielding, I don't even see her
Right.
trying to wield it in LA.
Mm-mm.
Because
No.
I mean they're in LA because Harry is not Megan, but Harry is doing a project with Oprah.
Yep.
Okay, not Megan didn't go out there to act with Oprah or Tyler Perry. They're staying in Tyler Perry's home, not because Megan is doing a bunch of Tyler Perry movies, but simply because Harry is making
Mm-hmm.
a documentary. But what is it about throwing the woman under the bus that makes this okay?
Mm-hmm.
Is that how it needs to be defined? Because you could say, oh, well, if you blame a woman, does that mean that it has a set time limit, like it's going to fall apart at some point? They were thinking that,
Mm-hmm.
oh, if Kaepernick, they'll break up, and he'll come back and he'll sign whatever we want him to sign and come back into the league. It'll be over, this, that, and the other.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what it is. I think they, you know what, Angela, to be honest with you, I think that all the way around, there are time limits assigned to what we do as women.
Mm.
Like it's not forever and always. That's why I love the fact that we say forever floaters when we talk about
Mm-hmm.
Michelle Obama, and that being in the White House was only part of what her legacy will be and what she will go on to
Mm-hmm.
do. I think they set expiration dates for us.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure somebody probably thought, oh, okay, well she's gonna blog, she's gonna talk about media, myself I'm talking about, for a little bit of time. I really think that's why it's hidden. If you think about the space flight that just happened, Elon
Mm-hmm.
Musk, there for the same company that Elon Musk has, there is one driven by a woman. In
Mm-hmm.
fact, Elon was in a race to space with her. He's on the Forbes list. She's on the Forbes list. And the
Mm-hmm.
only reason I discovered her was because I trolled the Forbes list and I noticed that they had the exact same description,
Mm-hmm.
relatively some similar monies, and they were involved in some of the same technologies and innovations. You know,
Mm-hmm.
but and I'm sorry I can't call her name, but you know, it's like if you look, you
Mm-hmm.
will find.
Yep.
We're here to help you guys start looking and asking where are the women in all of this? Where are the women in
Mm-hmm.
today's protest? Take it away. I'm gonna grab this book that I want us to
Yep.
talk about.
Go
Black
ahead.
Lives Matter.
No,
Go ahead.
absolutely. And just to sort of my final thought on the Meghan Markle effect is this idea of it's it's misogyny, and there is some sort of pleasure that certain people get out of grilling a powerful woman, and it's just it's a thrill to them, and it is, it's an old, the shrew, the cuckold, the whole kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's
Mm-hmm.
it's it's so offensive to women, but it's also offensive to men. And something to keep in mind, that anything that comes out of oppressing one person, a type of a group, right? be it gender, race, sexual orientation,
Mm-hmm.
whatever. It's bad for the victim, but it's bad for the group that are the oppressor groups as well. It's bad for
Yeah.
everybody. And so,
Right.
I mean, it's like, this is why, you know, getting rid of oppressive systems, even people who feel like they're benefiting from them are going to be
Mm-hmm.
better off without them. So, I mean, something I just think about what an insult to men in general, right? And to these
Mm-hmm.
men specifically, to say they don't have any, you know, well, if a man's with a powerful woman, he has no mind of his own. What? Yeah, it's just it's offensive across the board. Anyway,
Right.
let's go
Right.
to Black. Speaking of offenses,
Black Lives
let's
Matter. Okay.
yeah.
So there was a book tour and a signing. I want to say maybe even about a year ago. So when you talk about hidden women, a lot of the Black Lives Matter movement. In fact, there's one right now on TikTok who founded the movement in her city. But two women, Patrice and Aisha, they
Mm-hmm.
were the first ones to do throw out the hashtag.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the book. It says, let me go into the jacket. Right, let me see. Condemned as terrorists and as a threat to America, these loving women founded a hashtag that birthed the movement to demand accountability from the authorities who continually turn a blind eye to the injustices inflicted upon people of black and brown skin, championing human rights in the face of violent racism. Patrice is a survivor. She transformed her personal pain into political power, giving voice to a people suffering inequality and a movement fueled by her strength and love to tell the country and the world that Black lives matter. When they call you a terrorist is Patrice's and Asia's reflection on humanity. It is an empowering account of survival strength, resilience, and a call to action to change the culture. I'm looking, let me see. This came out. Let me see if I can get the. And I love the fact it's signed to This Ain't That Book Club, which is my book club. Um, that's funny. I always, when I open my books and they're signed, I am trying to find the page. Let's see if I can. I think it was about a year ago I got this. I want to say right at a year because I think I'm getting the memory stuff now. But again, I'm trying. I think. Okay, here we go. Here we go. My page was stuck. January. This is the first edition, January 2018.
Yeah.
2018. We were back. We were talking about the 2016 thing coming out and looking at and think about 2018 and 2019. Man, we were so looking forward to 2020.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I can't
Yeah.
help but to laugh at 20. I'm so glad I can laugh at 2020 now. And let me say, because yesterday when I woke up, Angela, I just felt like there was a pivot. I felt
Mm,
like there was a change. There was
mm,
something different in the air. The
yeah.
protests, they all took on a different tone.
Mm-hmm.
We've gotten away from the agitators, infiltrators, the violence to now, there was lots of music. I think what
Mm-hmm.
did it for me, the video of the two groups meeting together at the
Yeah.
intersection,
Yeah.
that right there, and it was almost like as if, because if you notice when they were marching, they were kind of marching through Ghost Town, right?
Right.
People weren't really out, and they meet at this one group is coming this way, and one group is coming that, and they meet at this intersection, and they're just elated, and it was
Yeah.
almost like the birthing of something. This is going to birth something. Let me tell you what it
Yeah.
birthed for me. Now, I started this week in a very dark place. I don't know
Mm,
who didn't, right? Understanding that we are now back here having to face something that's always going on, but having to face something head on once again to articulate the value of Black life. Um, but when I saw the article, which was a poll about the 74% believing that, what happened to George Floyd was an injustice, to be able to clearly and identify the 26% to the
mm,
now going forward the rest of my life that I can say 26%. And I'm pretty sure a lot of people on my timeline like, whoo, she has a different language. She's not just saying white people. But that
mm-hmm.
26%, Okay,
Mm-hmm.
knowing that freed me. I don't know
Hmm.
if, and I'm pretty sure it freed a lot of people because I
Mm-hmm.
have been saying the 1 out of 4. We say 1 out of 4 when we identify on a lot of stuff. To be able
Right.
to narrow it down to that 1 out of 4,
Yep.
okay, is is racist, pretty much, right? They have
Mm-hmm.
beliefs that will not allow justice to take place. They have
Yeah.
beliefs. 1 out of 4 has beliefs that are wholly untrue. They don't even have the experience of what they believe. That's the dangerous
Right.
part about society. When a
Right.
person is stuck in a place and they believe something, but they don't even have that as their own experience. They can't say to you,
Mm-hmm.
well, this and that has happened to me. And that goes across the board for a lot of stuff, right? Somebody that's like somebody, I was having a conversation with somebody and I gave them another piece of evidence and they and you know how you do that and they go, well, I
Mm-hmm.
don't care, you know?
Right.
And
Right.
it's like,
Right.
but the evidence shows, okay, but I don't care. I want to go back to this. No,
Right.
that's not how this works. So now we know what we need to do for that 26%. We've got to identify, we got to
Mm-hmm.
investigate, we got to
Mm-hmm.
identify. Because as women, Angela, you said it earlier, we want an outcome. I want an
Mm-hmm.
outcome now that we know 1 out of 4, 26%, which is 25% and
Mm-hmm.
75%. I want to know how we're gonna identify. I want an outcome. I want if a child in a social system exhibits a certain behavior that we then go and identify what. I mean, like if a child exhibits racism or hate,
Mm-hmm.
we
Mm-hmm.
identify where that comes from, but we're going to identify it. I'm going to figure out how to get this done. We're going to get it identified as child abuse because I'm sorry, you're not allowed to raise a child. We're talking about these
Mm-hmm.
14-year-olds, right? By the time they get
Mm-hmm.
to 14, the experiences that a child has had in this world by 14, okay,
Mm-hmm.
going back to the little 6-year-old, if a 6-year-old has to march and can verbalize no justice, no peace, and they have already at 6 years old have had enough experience, right? I mean, we're talking about experience, right? By
Right.
6 years old, they've had enough experience to say that they know that racism exists. So but that 26%, that 6-year-old hasn't had
Mm-hmm.
experience to know that they should be prejudiced about a thing.
Right.
They don't know that. They haven't had that kind of experience. So I want us to figure out how do we get a different outcome there,
Well, I
right?
was right. And I was very struck by the epidemiologist talking about coronavirus and the risk of coronavirus being out protesting. And a group came out and said the virus of racism is as deadly as the virus of coronavirus, and it's been
Mhm.
around longer. And so
Mhm.
the health risk involved in fighting racism are probably worth it, right? Even if you're risking coronavirus. And I thought you talk about something that really felt like moved the needle for me is that, right? And
Mhm.
to say that, and they said the things that are causing Black populations to be more susceptible to coronavirus and have higher rates of death. It's the
Mhm.
same thing
And
behind
any
police
other
brutality.
condition.
Said it's the
Mhm.
same. It's the same
Mhm. Mhm.
underlying problem. And when we
Mhm.
look at it like that, see now we're digging down and we're starting to get into the root. We're barely getting into the root, but we're starting
Mhm.
to see again institutions recognizing that
Mhm.
there is something greater than that is something greater in this, and that there's a connectivity to it that hurts
Mhm.
our entire society over and over and over many
Say
layers.
that. Yeah.
So to say that I'm thinking about your 1 in 4 is,
Mhm.
where do we take our effort? This is the question that everybody's had, right? What do I do? Where do I put my energy? Where do I put my effort? And so when you are able to say, like you say, you're a person of data. I enjoy data too, but you're the data person, right? And say, if I know it's 1 in 4, we can have mitigation plans for the one, But with 75%, we do not need to be wasting our energy trying to shift 25%.
Mm-hmm.
We need to be spending our energy to bring the 75% together to work on something and to bring change. And I think
Right.
that helps. I really do think that it's like, I saw there's a writer I follow, and she was saying, she wrote a book called "So You Want to Talk About Race," and I think her name is
Mm.
um, Ijoma Olou. I'm sorry, I'm sorry. I should know her name. She has a Nigerian name, and she's based in Seattle. So you want to talk about race, and she speaks a lot on diversity issues, and she's like, we've been telling white people, you need to go talk to your Trump family, and she says, you know what, I don't care about your racist uncle, right? Said
Mm-hmm.
I said white people who care, I'd rather you be involved in changing systems. So we got to
Right.
change the
Right.
systems. And she said, if Trump was gone tomorrow, the systems would all still be there. This is showing that there are systems. You look at these, you even look at what's happening in these protests, and certain police departments, have very few incidents. Some are just like they're wilding out. I mean, there really are police riots, and it doesn't. And a lot of times these are in cities, Minneapolis, New York. They have, they have Democratic liberal mayors, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And yet their police force, they're clearly infiltrated with white,
Mm-hmm.
full of white supremacists, right? So
Mm-hmm.
to say it's a system,
Because
right?
the police force is there forever. The mayor is come and go.
Yeah. So exactly. So to understand that even if you get rid of this, you got to get down. You got to get
The
down
root.
into the root of it, or
Mm-hmm.
it's going to continue. And so when we say, well, now, okay, so where do we put our energy? And she's like, you're changing the mind of one racist is not going to help. Changing systems will. And her conclusion was, I'm worth more than your racist uncle. And I was like, that's the bottom line right there.
Mm-hmm.
And so and I was like, yeah, I think this is again very significant. Is if we can figure out, like, so you have to understand. And look, it's again, people don't know. There's a lot of people don't know what to do. They may disagree with certain things, but to say, let's coalesce, that's the word I'm looking for, let's coalesce our efforts over here, and if we can
Mm-hmm.
change the systems, the rest are either going to have to get in line, right?
Right.
Or they're going to be, you are going to start to be able to see, like you say, to have a mitigation plan. I'm with you. You got to have a mitigation plan over here.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And if, and again, if you're thinking of it like a virus, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then we see how we've been trying to treat a virus that is spread from person to person, right?
Mm-hmm.
How do we work on that? But so I think
And
that
that's the problem behind the march. When you look at the march, okay, 75% are out there marching, but because there was no ongoing plan, no structure,
mm-hmm,
there's no data being captured. They won't know how. They're looking at this. If you wanted to get that many faces, that much diversity out there under one cause, you never would have been able to do it because we would have used, as you were talking about earlier, some of those old demographics, some of those
mm-hmm,
old policies to try to bring people together, and it never would have worked.
mm-hmm,
But because what's out there right now, if we go back to the 14-year-old, if you go back to the people
mm-hmm,
that are out there protesting right now, it's because by the time they turned 14, this society had changed. They all had a black president,
yep,
okay, with a very diverse administration, right? And even down on the local level, we saw a lot of change on the local level. And I'm saying this because I raised one of those individuals. Now I had 4 kids. My youngest one, the pattern of society throughout his life, from the time that he was born 1 month before the Million Man March. Okay,
wow,
and so throughout there were all of these pivotal moments that I remember when the girls, when they went to elementary school, there was some diversity, but by the time they got to middle school, they were all off in their own enclaves. High
mm-hmm,
school, hey, they were black and I'm proud, and but with my son, I'm from the beginning of socialization to now, it's been entire diversity. One funny thing here in Georgia, guys, and we're in Georgia, our our conservative governor brought out the National Guard to police the march, not realizing that these kids just grew up together. So
Yeah.
in Atlanta, all of this video of them doing the guard is out there doing the electric
Yeah. Well, and it's yes, please
with the
laugh.
marchers, with the marchers, because that old school, those old demographics are not working. Nobody was. All of this happened with our young people, and which is why we have to get out of the way. All of this happened with them without anybody knowing it,
Mhm.
without under nobody's watch. Nobody realized it. Nobody really talked about it, and certainly people weren't keeping data. Um, there's a couple of documentaries you can find right now where there were studies that people follow this generation, and it happens in every generation where they follow from the time they're born and they go back and they
Mhm.
visit and visit. So there's information out there. I think that our country was just so hell bent on something else, which we know prison system, that it happened because nobody was watching. You know, it happened because I mean, you think about the diversity, and I'm on TikTok real heavy right now, and there's a lot of explanation going on from mixed families. You know, we've got not one, what I think two television shows now that focus on interracial families. You know, you
Mhm.
had we thought we had it in our day. You had we grew you and I both grew up watching the Jeffersons and this that
Mhm.
and the other. But there were certain factors, key factors in those shows that like,
Mhm.
oh, this is just television. It wouldn't work off television. This that and the other. But I think it happened because people were um, when we talk about hidden women, there's a benefit to these women being hidden all of this time. When we talk about the hidden figures, coming out
Mhm.
talking about the space program now. We talk about what happened in Tulsa, and I was telling a young man the other day. He was saying, "Man, it never happened here." No, Tulsa was and I don't want to say it even now. Was rebuilt again and again. It just wasn't publicized. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah.
There's success. How I explained it, he's like, "What do you mean?" I said, "Did you not see that brother show up and pay all that tuition and Morehouse? That's Tulsa, right?"
Mhm.
And the question then everybody asked was, who is he and where did he come from?
Yeah.
Right? Nobody knew that there were these people masking that type of wealth,
That type of
unless you were
wealth. Yeah.
really, yeah, unless you were really doing your deep dive on the Forbes list and the reports. But he's on the side of the Forbes list that nobody's looking, because everybody's looking, trying to figure out how the hip hoppers are doing with their wealth.
Right.
They weren't looking at the other list. Forbes puts out
Mhm.
several lists, and they even tweet about those. So it, it's like some things, maybe even you and I, in that we want to tell the story of these women. Some of this stuff might ought to stay hidden. Blogging for 20 years, I'll tell you the hardest story to tell. I mean, it's called dryerbus.com. It's published in the hair salons. The hardest story was for me to tell was the story of women, because women weren't that forthcoming with that. And unlike men, you'd be hard pressed to go and find, and I'm going to challenge everybody to do this. Go and find the story of a woman, and in her story, she talks about being homeless. But a
Mhm.
lot of the successful men, what's in their story?
Yeah.
How they had nothing and they
Mhm.
overcame, all of this, and it's part of their story. But you can't name a woman that in her success that she talks about. Even if, of course, most people would immediately say Oprah, but that's not her narrative. That she was
Yeah.
once. You don't know what kind of loss Oprah has
Mhm.
had over her life.
Yeah.
Little nuances have come out here and there, but for the most part, she's hidden in plain sight,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Michelle Obama, hidden in plain sight, even
Yeah.
going right up with the south side of Chicago. The direct
Mhm.
result of the Great Migration. Direct
Yeah.
result. Remember, I said when we watched Michelle Obama's show, I said, Angela, something sticking out to me about Michelle Obama's grandfather.
Yeah.
And I want to really go back and find the hidden figure there to his mother, because To me, there's something familiar about how what he poured into his grandkids, that
Mm-hmm.
they are who they are today. Not who they are today, but there's something that Michelle and her brother believe, and they in that documentary they almost questioned the mother about it. When they
Mm-hmm.
remember they were sitting at the brothers' kitchen table, there
Yes.
was a discussion that was almost about to start that you can tell Michelle Obama and her brother need an answer to.
Right.
And they were asking the mom. Remember, she was talking about her husband, and she talked about the father. Like okay, who the dandy? Whose father was he? Was that her father's father or her mother's
You
father?
know what? And I don't
It's
know. I
hard to
can't.
tell, right?
Yeah, because she talks about the grandfathers, and even reading it, I was like, I felt like I needed a little family tree, right? Because they were all
Yeah,
there
there's
together.
something about Dandy.
Dandy, it's
There's some,
dandy though. Yeah.
yeah, there's something about Dandy that I picked up on that might have to do with the migration,
Mm-hmm.
or something coming through that line ended up
Yep.
with him,
Yep.
ended up in the parents, and it came to question in Michelle and her brother.
Mm-hmm.
And I've got to go back and find out whose father he was. And I'm going to say
Mm-hmm.
it's a little bit of colorism.
Mm.
There's a little bit of colorism in that conversation. If you go back to the movie about the banker, you know,
Right.
if there was something that the character in the banker said, and
Mm-hmm.
things that happen in that banker's family, that
Mm-hmm.
that's in with that, and you can tell Michelle and her brother are trying to suppress it, or have
Mm-hmm.
no, or having to suppress it
Mm-hmm.
because they have to. It's like, well, if she had her ordinary life, it would be okay. But
Right.
because she was the FLOTUS and she had to go and interact in this world,
Mm-hmm.
there's some there was some colorism there that I wanna figure out how they are suppressing it, and
Mm-hmm.
and breaking the cycle of it. I'll put it that way because I don't want people to think I'm like saying they have colorism, but there was something that they realized. As much as they love the grandparents, again we go back to experiences. This man
Mm-hmm.
was all they were their experiences, and
Yep.
that's why when I said I want to look back to 1920 and 1920, 19
Right.
what 40, 1960. See how fast that jumps? Because each
Yep.
one of those 20 years is a generation.
Yep.
So if we look at the 20 and 1940 and 1960, that's us,
That's it.
right? And then you
Yep.
got 1980, that's our kids. And
Yep.
well, I started having kids at that age. And then you got what 2000,
Mm-hmm.
then 2010, in 2020,
Yep.
2020, right? Here we
Yep.
are. So we gotta understand what that means and why in that time these 14-year-old girls were hidden. Because if we fix their experiences, Angela,
Mm-hmm.
in that time, we wouldn't be here trying to fix the experiences of our young women today. You
Yes.
know?
And this is why I'm a firm believer in a truth and reconciliation model like they used in
Yeah.
South Africa at the end of apartheid, where it's like we're going to tell everything. We're going to tell every story, good,
Mhm.
bad, ugly.
Mhm.
Because if we don't pull it out, if we don't tell the stories, we don't acknowledge what has happened, then they say bad things get shoved down, good things get shoved down. And
And that's what you were
it's
saying when you
it,
said
yeah,
if we don't fix this, everybody hurts because
everybody
what we don't want to
everybody
talk
hurts.
about, we don't want to talk about the bad thing. We can't talk about the good thing.
Exactly. And so, you
Hmm.
know, it's it's painful, but it's critical. We can't do it without. Well, do we want to let's hit on the NFL because we're I
Yes,
knew we would be able to talk for hours today because
on that.
I
Where where
you
do we
are the
go?
football you're the football expert. You're the sports
Well, I'm a
expert.
troll. Let me tell you, I only became an expert. And let's go back. I remember I kept telling you about. I kept hearing all week about experienced expert. I'm
Mm-hmm.
only an expert on on football right now is because football gave me a
Oh,
lot to blog about because they made so many errors over the thing.
you're like
Before
it's so
Kaepernick,
easy.
Yeah, they made it
Yeah.
so easy. Like you pulling me in, you pulling me in. And now I love that my Twitter is filled with all these sports talk people
Mm-hmm.
and just football all over my timeline.
Right.
My daughter is a avid football fan, and of course I got in it with her. But before the NFL, before the Kaepernick situation, before Black Lives Matter and the protest, the flag, and all of that, the protest was domestic violence. They were taking on a lot of
That's
heat
right.
because a lot of their players were being and still are being
Mm-hmm.
arrested for domestic violence. And so this, going to this whole thing about this guy, not even the Kaepernick movement or anything like that. Oh, there's a guy in this photo that's kneeling that didn't go to the line with everybody else. He didn't even go to the line to kneel. He was like over behind the water cooler, right?
Mm-hmm.
Kaepernick was, but this photo, and it's like, oh, let's use that. And I think they used it to kind of cover up, because they were really getting ready to be taken down with domestic violence.
Yeah.
And they had it's so many cases I can't even name one. Um,
Well,
I
I remember the case where the football player beat
the
his
young
wife
woman on the elevator.
in the elevator. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that was I
You know,
think one of the last ones. Yeah, not to mention they had a whole player that Ray Caruth is now out of jail. That was
yep.
one. I mean, so there was case after case after case.
Yep.
But what do we do in America? We find something else to throw something else under the bus, and so
Mm-hmm.
it became this, and then it became the flag, and so forth. But recently, reason why I say flag, the thing that's happening now is Drew Brees did an interview,
Mm-hmm.
and I think the reporter wanted to ask him about, hey, all these people out here in the streets that are marching, and he brought up the flag again, and it just speaks to being tone deaf. And
Mm-hmm.
so he took a lot of hit, and I wish it was really football season so he could take some real hits for it. But the players had already kind of just this was him doubling down because
Mm-hmm.
he'd already put this out there. He'd already divided up his team. He'd already lost respect from the fans and
Mm-hmm.
so forth. Besides just diehard Saints fans, but we to this day in Atlanta don't know why they are still diehard Saints fans. But anyway, so he'd already distanced himself, and of course attached himself to Trump's hip. We already knew that was a thing. But to double down on this in the middle
Yeah.
of what happened to George Floyd, what happened to Ahmaud Arbery, what happened to Breonna Taylor, when we got three fresh deaths, okay?
Mm-hmm.
I hate to have to say it, three fresh deaths,
Yeah.
and you want to talk about respecting the flag. Did I freeze it? We freeze something going on over here.
No, that's fine here.
Okay, I think we're good. Okay. Three fresh deaths, and you want to talk about the flag. And I'm like, and I don't know if Drew Brees ever served in the military. I don't know. Um, but he took a quick hit on this and came back. Everybody was like, "Okay, dude, just retire. Just retire." NFL has enough problems. In just a matter of hours, he doubled down on his stance. His teammates, others in the league spoke out against him. Um, he apologized, and then of course, but by the time he apologized, Trump was running with it. The NFL in and of itself came back and literally said that Kaepernick was right, and they should have sided with him. They should
Yep.
have let them protest. That they just pretty much handled this matter incorrectly, and
So
it
I
feels
want to look
better.
right. I want to look at this now. Let's just draw a thread back through of the
Hmm.
role that social media played in this, right? And if we had any question that Colin Kaepernick taking a knee is connected
Hmm.
to to Black Lives Matter protest and to the response against it, right? The fact that people are taking a knee during the protest is something, but particularly Drew Brees' statement, and then Donald Trump sent out some, I don't know if it was the Republicans or whatever, they sent out some sort of fundraising letter just shortly after Drew Brees made his statement, and in all caps it said no kneeling. And it's like, yes, we support we're against police brutality, but no kneeling. And it's just like in the middle, no kneeling. And I was like, because I saw a screen clip, no kneeling. So we
Right.
know that's directly connected, right? But what got me interested is, so you have Drew Brees making this statement. You have the NFL making a statement on Blackout Tuesday that says we support Black lives, and the whole world just went bullshit, right? So this is the
Right.
most tone deaf, hypocritical statement, and I believe that may have been first than Drew Brees. So then you had this response from this group of players, all making a statement and saying, we support protests, we support Black Lives Matters. It's interesting that segment of interviews, and I can't think of what they called it. It's got a name. Was actually produced on the sly by the social media team of the NFL. So it didn't say from the NFL, but the social media team of the NFL that has refused that was made to send out that crappy Blackout Tuesday statement. And I promise you that social media team was like, no, don't do it. Right. They went behind the back. They went behind everybody's back, put that out there.
They're not that diverse on that team.
And basically somebody put their feet to the fire on that. And then we get the next day Goodell saying, we were wrong. Perhaps we were wrong. And so hold
on, let's go back to Goodell.
Mm-hmm.
He's recording that in his basement.
His bunker.
The video, I'm like, for something of that magnitude, I know
his
quarantine
kidnap
is
video
going on. Right, exactly. I know quarantine is going on. I know everybody can't groom the way they need to be. Yeah. But for something of that magnitude, they should have gone to headquarters.
Yep.
That should have been, I don't care if they needed to self-isolate. It needed to be him. It needed to be the owners. Even if they had to do it in a Zoom, it needed to be, I mean, you literally called for, I mean, you double down on racism. You double down on prejudice. You double down on violence. You double down on anti-peace, right? I mean, you triple down on it, right? I mean, season after season after season of going against Colin Kaepernick on this thing, and even, but for the commissioner to give us outside of his closet in his basement, he didn't even bother to fully get dressed, putting on his insignia. The branding wasn't there. It was haphazard. It was disrespectful.
Well,
it was utterly disrespectful.
Absolutely. And I want to tie this into, I attended a social media conference this week. It was a virtual conference, and it was over 2.5 days. So Wednesday afternoon through Friday. And typically it's a big in-person event. I was actually quite happy to be able to attend because I could attend virtually. They had pivoted. It was supposed to be in person. They had pivoted to talk about coronavirus. Then the week before this thing launches, we have the whole Black Lives Matter movement. And it was interesting to watch, even as the conference progressed, the speakers adjusting, right, to what was going on. But across the board, every social media expert, we're talking about 35 speakers, talked about how bad that NFL messaging is. And what you could see. And I'm like, I'm on, I've been on Twitter nonstop for 2 weeks, right? Doing what's called social listening. I'm listening to what people are saying. I'm looking and listening. That's part of my research, is I do social listening. And anybody that was doing social listening was saying, all of you brands that are out here giving lip service to Black Lives Matter, you are screwed, because people are over it. And so, like you say, so when I was in the conference, we just had the Blackout Tuesday piece. We had not gotten to the apology or the whatever, the acknowledgement. Right. But they were time and time again, the people that Facebook, Microsoft, there have big companies represented here, and said, we have reached the point, we can see through the kinds of polling that you had, 74% say this is bad. Facebook had some stat that was like 93% of people in whatever poll they did said they expect a company to live up to what they're saying, that they're looking to see the actions of the company toward their employees, toward their customers. It's like people
Mm-hmm.
are over it. And so when we talk about what's different this time, because we, other than the length of these protests,
Right.
is the fact is that people have become well enough educated that every time there is a person or a brand that treats something, that tweets or shares an ad, does a commercial, whatever, that says we at the NFL value Black lives or whatever, there is someone behind that in 30 seconds with the receipts, right? Well,
Mm-hmm.
then why are you doing this? Why did you do that? Why did you do this? And what are you going to do? What are you going
Now.
to do to change this, right? And so
Right.
I think that right there is, as leading women, tie this back around, where do the gray hairs, where particularly we talk to a lot of Gen Xers, right? What is our role in this? It's time for us
Mm-hmm.
to bring our skill sets in, right? If marching is a young person's game, not that there aren't old people out marching, then organizing, what is it, Killer Mike, organize, strategize, it's to say people are ready for a
Mm-hmm.
change. And what I saw, and I heard presentations during the week of social media managers, these are social media people, basically
Mm-hmm.
staging little revolts in their own business, in their own companies, and finally saying, no, we've got to do something different. We cannot continue to be tone deaf. We cannot continue to send out messages. Our customers know it. And so
Right.
we're seeing it. New York Times, they had a big internal dispute. LinkedIn, somebody, pulled back the curtain to air, I don't want to call it dirty laundry because it's the laundry. It's what they're wearing. Right. And so we've reached a point where not only consumers, but employees
Right.
are over it. So this goes back to the thing that we were talking about, I think, last week about humans. Humans are the economy. Humans, all right? And I heard a presentation on empathy from Microsoft, of all people. And it's like, don't talk about your customers. Don't talk about your clients. Don't talk about your employees. Talk about your humans, right? How are your humans? What do your humans need, right? Not human resources. What do your human beings need? And I think
Mm-hmm.
that we are at the point where people are like, I'm not going to tolerate somebody giving lip service. How long have we heard people, brands, whatever, oh, yes, we're for whatever. And then they don't change anything, right?
Anything.
And
Anything.
people, so many people have lost their jobs. They're not afraid to talk anymore. It's like,
And that's, oh
let me
my
tell you
God,
what's
that,
happening.
yeah. That's a large part of it because I mean, when you think about the protests, I mean, look at how many people were home
Yep.
that didn't have to. That's why we had a protest every day this week. Because normally it would have been like, oh, everyone's to come out for the weekend. But the
Yep.
thing about the NFL, when they made that, and yet you make that kind of assertion, but yet you still don't have a deal and for Colin for Kaepernick.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
My thing is, I don't want to see Kaepernick go back and play football. I want to see a team. I want to
Mm-hmm.
see Kaepernick and I don't know whoever he has to do a team with, whether it's Jay Z or whomever,
Mm-hmm.
Diddy. Remember, Diddy made a plot. There was a
That's,
team.
mm-hmm.
Actually, I don't know if it was an NBA or NFL.
It,
But remember, Diddy was
yeah, yeah.
trying to do
Yep.
a team. There should be a team. There should be a team in the works of kicking off next season or whatever. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, that's again one of the outcomes. If you think about it, I mean, the initial pushback on all of this quickly came from women because we don't want you can't just throw something at us. It's like, wait a minute, long term, what's the long term game on this? The thing about the NFL, I think, and I tweeted this, the thing that upset me the most, and that's not the word I use in my tweet, but NFL, when you think about it, Colin Kaepernick was a quarterback. There is something called the quarterback kneel. And the language in the NFL's definition of a kneel, a quarterback's kneel, talks about reducing harm. It talks
Mm-hmm.
about reducing violence. It speaks to the language of what it is and how they themselves having that is an actual play that happens many a times in a game,
Right.
how they allow someone else through the media to redefine what Colin Kaepernick does and other players
Mm-hmm.
wanted to do in taking a quarterback's knee. I mean, because
Right.
all eyes are on the quarterback. For
Right.
them to allow the system to redefine what that meant and to make this man a villain right before our eyes, going back to
Yep.
experiences. In my lifetime, I experienced the NFL allow other systems to redefine their definition of what it
Mm-hmm.
means for a quarterback to kneel. When and only when that quarterback wanted to use kneeling to save lives of people who look like me.
Yep.
That's my experience with the NFL. Now, mind you, when Drew Brees doubled down and all these men came out. I'm listening to sports radio this week, and I have to listen to a grown man trying to articulate his experience in the
Mm.
NFL. He played in the NFL. He was in those locker rooms. He had to protect racist players like Drew Brees. If anybody wants to say
Mm-hmm.
he's not racist, tweet me. Okay? The
Mm.
fact that he turns a blind eye to the experience of other people, that is a prejudice. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And then he double downs on it. That makes him racist. All right. In a time when he wanted to speak on it, in a time when we had fresh death, that makes him racist. Okay. So I'm listening
Mm-hmm.
to a football player who I listen to in the morning. So I listen to sports radio, trying to get. I listen to sports radio, trying to get away from all this stuff. And I'm listening to a grown man having to articulate his experience in the NFL and his fears for himself and his own son, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because think about the life that he can afford for his son, and even that does not protect him from what happens in society if he comes across this 1 in 4, this 26%
Yep.
that the other three people can't seem to control. And it ain't even about
Mm-hmm.
control, but dang, to be afraid of that one person. Y'all afraid of Drew Brees? Drew Brees is but simply an employed quarterback. Take his deal. I want him not to be in the NFL right now, so that
Mm-hmm.
going forward, the outcome will be that no other team member has to worry about offending the racist player or
Yep.
protecting the racist
Yep.
player. And all of these men that had to come out and say, dude, I've lost all respect. What do you mean? You still have respect for him? He's been said he does not respect you.
That's
And
right.
you talking about, oh, dude, now I've lost respect for you. He never had respect for you.
Mm-hmm.
Never had it. The man said, I will never respect
Mm-hmm.
somebody who disrespects the flag. Well, honey, I will never respect somebody who disrespects the death.
Exactly.
Because that's what we're talking about. So, you keep your flag, I'm gonna keep my people living. Okay. And I can't wait. And I'm so glad we get to see him twice as in football. But I'm about ready to go to every Saints game because I
I
want
can.
and mic him up. I want him mic'd up. I want to hear every time he go down. I do. I'm just that mad.
I'm like,
But I
Yolanda's
mean,
ready to get on the field.
girl, I was like, look, I need a practice. I need an open practice. I need an exhibition game. I need him to know. And that's his fear now. Because there's no way he could put on a uniform. There's no way he could step on a field. There's no apology. There's nothing that
Mm-hmm.
he could say. You double down on this. Wasn't you speaking on the cuff. This was you in the middle of unrest in this entire country and throughout the diaspora.
Mm-hmm.
You saying that you would never respect somebody over a flag. Well, I'm sorry, honey. We will never respect somebody that is that tone deaf when we have this kind of loss in our community, in our
And
culture, in our diaspora. Never.
and and I want to quote my mom, and who had, I think, some very wise words on this. And she was talking about the flag or any other kind of thing. She said, "Why do we elevate the symbol of the thing over the thing itself?" And so when we elevate the flag or a belief or a policy, right, or a
Mm-hmm.
law
Mm-hmm.
or
Mm-hmm.
whatever that's supposed to protect people, humans, a way of life, whatever, if we elevate that over the thing itself, then it's meaningless and it's stupid, right? So
Mm-hmm.
so this whole flag issue, you
Yeah.
disrespect the flag, you have elevated the symbol above the thing
Right.
itself. If you come out of
Right.
Judeo-Christianity, that's idolatry.
Mm-hmm.
You are worshiping an idol. So
Mm-hmm.
just put that in your hat.
Right.
And
And the fact that they remember they stuck with the flag part because it emboldened that 26%, because
mhm.
that's where they were on the
Yep.
flag, because
Yep.
they have those symbols, those symbols over everything,
Yep.
things that they aren't even in living up to in their own societies,
Yep.
so that's just a part of that. It's time for the NFL. It's time for the NFL to change. And I know that we did the book, and I'm gonna tell you, because if somebody wants to say, "Well, wait, you have a difference," I have a difference of opinion. My opinion was, when it came to police brutality, I didn't want to exert any energy, and I'm gonna just say it like that. I didn't want to put any energy on the NFL, because I felt like we should have put that energy on the mayors and the police chiefs,
Mhm.
and the training systems of our police forces and our government, for people that we elect, because they're coming at us now, like even our mayors, and like, oh, you got to go vote. I'm like, we already voted. We elected you, and we
That's
still
it.
dying. You know what I'm saying? Okay, we're gonna vote, no doubt. We're going to vote, but we voted. We talked about 100 years. We voted for 100 years. We in this 100 years. I mean, we voted, but that's not where change really came from. It really didn't.
No, and
You
not,
know,
again, encouraging people to vote, but it is going this back to being
it's
leaders.
offensive. I'm
Yes.
offended. I'm offended by
Yeah.
somebody telling me that here you're down there trying to clean up the blood, and they
Right.
come, go vote.
Yeah. Yeah.
That
And that's
when is voting stop the bloodshed?
mhm. Yeah.
I'm like,
And
wait, I'm still like, tell me that, and I'm not telling anybody not to, because you
mhm.
need to, but I will also tell you, you need to not just go vote. You need to know who's on the ballot. You need to help people get on the ballot, be affiliated with somebody that's on the ballot. My neighbor is running. It's like, hello, it's big. It's like you said, it's like, that's that word vote, and telling people to
Mhm.
go vote is no different than them with their flag.
That's
It's a
it. And
symbol.
it's a
It's a symbol of
symbol.
a thing. Yeah,
It's a symbol of a thing. And exactly.
that's
And if
what
you
it
go
is.
into a system, we have to go back to systems. If you go into a broken system, you can come in with
Mhm.
the best of intentions, and the system will crush you, right? And
Every time, every
so
time.
this is why we have to be looking at how do we change these systems, and usually that comes out of grassroots movements like Black
Yeah,
Lives Matter. And this
yeah.
is it's people coming up, and it's individuals changing something on a small level and bring it forward. So it's going to be
Mhm.
time to wrap. This is
Yeah, we're
this is a
over.
these are heavy topics. But Yalanda, I want you to give us something lighthearted. You shared a TikTok, and I
Well,
tell
let
you,
me tell you about this.
wait,
When you
wait,
talk about,
before you
okay, go
go
ahead.
into it, let me just plug Yalanda. If you're trying to figure out TikTok, right? And TikTok is up and coming, right? And it's I just saw a stat: 40% of people on TikTok are over the age of like 25. I don't know, or it's not. They're not Gen Z's. Look at
Well,
Yolanda. You will
there
start
are
to figure
groups
out
on there
TikTok.
now, and let me tell you guys. And we've been begging for a new platform. It's not even that new, because I was
Mm-hmm.
looking. Mine said I joined like a long time ago. I don't even know when they came out. But I'm
Right.
that person. Whenever a platform comes out, I
You go
go and get
join.
my name.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, go
Yeah.
join, get your name. But thanks to quarantine, what else you got to do besides watch hours and hours upon TikTok? But I always do something different, Angela, is I share.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'm not just watching and scrolling. One thing I'm not going to do is undermine what it is you're trying to accomplish. So, and people are on TikTok because they're trying to become TikTok famous. I mean, that's
Mm-hmm.
that's the thing, right? So please don't follow people and then disadvantage them by not continuing to like their stuff. Okay. So one of the things that I do, I've done it for every platform that I've been on. I did it when I was on Periscope. I would go in, I would have like these different trains. Like, you come on mine, and then I'm gonna take you and I'm gonna show you all these people you should follow.
Right.
So the same thing with TikTok. So one of the things that I do on my timeline is I share the TikToks as stories on my social media,
Mm-hmm.
and they became so popular on the stories because the engagement was buzz it or bash it. Buzz it or
Mm-hmm.
bash it, binge it or cringe it, or just simply, how much do you like it? And it became so popular on the stories, I decided, well, I'm going to start posting them because you can syndicate, you can share it to other platforms, right? The whole TikTok.
Mm-hmm.
And what I love about it is when you do share it, TikTok will keep that person's name on it and so forth and so on. So they're not losing anything and you're not stealing content as other platforms as you've had to do with other platforms.
Right.
You basically you can repost it and people can find their way back to the original. So the other day I said, okay, I'm gonna start, I just inundated with all the protest stuff. I came across a couple of them, and man, it just gave me life. There was this one lady, and she's been on. She's got a good bit of content on there, but clearly she's a person where she's been on quarantine, and she went outside one day, honey, and she took her phone, and she has for every dance challenge, and there have been a number of quote unquote boomers or grannies, as they're
Right.
called
Right.
on
Right.
there that have done this, and they are just absolutely amazing. But I mean, now mind you, going back to that 14-year-old girl, Angela.
Mm-hmm.
Remember the 14-year-old girl in her came out. She
Yep.
took her phone outside in her driveway, and man, she started to dance. And it is the best video ever. 45 shares from that, 70 something, but the shares are going on
Mm-hmm.
and on and on. Almost 2,000 views just from my share.
Yep.
Okay. On hers, it's already up to the millions, right?
Right.
And I guarantee you on Monday, come Monday, the television, the daytime shows will have it.
Yep.
Everybody will have it because all you need to do is get an influencer on your stuff. I guarantee you're going to see her video on the daytime shows. What's the
Yeah.
day? Sunday tomorrow,
Yep.
coming up tomorrow. I guarantee you it is the best thing ever. And if you go to her page, she's even got videos with the neighbors. She's gotten a couple of the neighbors to do these videos. But again, uninhibited. We have lived so long
Mm-hmm.
in a society that inhibits us from just being happy. To see her, I'm still wondering right now, Angela, where do you think she might have placed this phone? Because that's the thing about TikTok is like
Yep.
where are people placing these phones in
It
order to
looks
get
like
these
it's on
things
the
done?
roof. I mean, like, where did she put this phone?
Right. Is it
Let's
like on the porch?
it must
Wherever.
be like she's got it up high because she's just it's shooting down at her. And but
Right.
I think your analogy between the inner 14-year-old, right, is really appropriate, particularly
Yeah.
for as we're looking at Gen X and as we're getting, as we're getting older, is to say, there's uh, a woman's a doctor who has talked a lot about the mind body connection for women, and
Mm-hmm.
she talked about, I remember years ago, that you know you have the little girls have great confidence, up
I'm
until they're
checking on
11,
my
12.
turkey now.
That's fine.
Don't
Check on
forget
your
my
turkey.
turkey's cooking.
and
Go ahead.
and and don't seem and have tremendous confidence, and then once they hit adolescence, and it seems like from adolescence all the way through to menopause, in those
Yeah.
childbearing years, maybe it's hormones, social pressure, there was this, like you say, this thing of shutting down, this need to
Mm-hmm.
please, all this kind of thing, but that women tend to post menopause to
Yeah.
reconnect to who they were when they were 11, 12, 13. They reconnect to that fearless little girl, right? And they're
Mm-hmm.
ready to that girl's
Oh.
been waiting. She's been waiting. And when you and I don't know if that lady's menopausal. It doesn't have to. This is not,
But I mean,
exact
if you
science.
think about it, you can think about it. There's got to be some times in her life when she did not dance.
No, because
There's
she would
got
have
to be
been.
some time when she did not dance.
Look,
Yeah.
I mean, me, and it's like I have a whole. We'll do this and on another day. My whole the saga of Angela wants to dance, and it,
I
and this
thought
thing.
about you when I saw that video,
Oh, I
I
would do
said,
that.
I gotta get.
You know I
I
would.
said,
And it's
I
like
gotta get Angela on
if
TikTok.
I ever
And
figure
you,
out TikTok.
but you have the perfect backdrop. Those trees. Look, I'm getting everybody on TikTok.
She go get me on
You
TikTok.
have the perfect backdrop.
Mm-hmm.
Those trees,
Yeah.
back, and I just think everybody should do it. The problem is that we talk about this all the time. When we talk about shame, I'm gonna keep
Mm-hmm.
talking to you, but I'm gonna get my turkey out this
That's
oven.
fine. And then,
Um,
yep.
but you and I have talked a number of times about shame and how
Mm-hmm.
much time we spend shaming a thing or being afraid of a thing
Yeah.
um, before we do it. What's happening now on TikTok is um, the shame is gone.
Yep.
There's nothing else to be ashamed of because what we did was people were shamed because they sought after that kind of notoriety.
Right.
Wanting somebody to see you over time. That's the thing. They're like, yeah, see me, honey.
Yeah.
Whereas before, remember I talked about being persecuted coming up in my day, trying to be a YouTuber,
Right.
asking people to watch. We early on, those of us that were first on YouTube first, I mean, we were persecuted for wanting a show and wanting this thing. But now that everybody is doing it, you gotta wait till something becomes popular.
Yep.
And but let me tell you, when you think about how these things, families, I mean, you watch a TikTok and it's got the whole entire family in it.
Yep.
I pretty much I love watching the toddlers who don't even know how to speak, but they know how to start a TikTok. They know how to find a song. Like this one guy, he was sitting there and his daughter was on his lap, and he gave her his phone, and man, she did the whole savage dance. He was like, she did the whole. She was, I mean, the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
1 years old.
Yep.
1 years old. The baby. People are like the babies are crying, and people are holding the camera to the baby, and the baby sees himself, and they go into a whole routine. It's
Yep.
like it's funny. I have not laughed so hard since TikTok. I mean, and
Well, and
hopefully we'll be talking about another platform because TikTok
well,
has its issues. There was a major protest on TikTok just recently about
mm-hmm.
black and brown creators that
Right.
happened right before all of this. But in the same vein, I mean, it's the audience. What are we supporting? And it's just time to just support people. Go ahead.
Well, that's it. And one of the presentations I heard on TikTok was this is really brought families together when they're and during quarantine and gives them a family
Mm-hmm.
project, and that it's a very time intensive to do these elaborate TikToks is very time intensive, and because
Mm-hmm.
people have had time, they've been really
Yeah.
able to get in there, but in a time of darkness, right, and sadness and
Mm-hmm.
isolation, that people have used a platform for joy, right?
Yes.
They've used it for joy and to spread joy, and that it has worked shows the potential of these platforms. And so
Mm-hmm.
every time people want to talk to me about the threats and the risk of all these of screens and platforms and
Social
so forth,
media.
and and I'm like, I get it, it can be terrible, but it can be
Mm-hmm.
wonderful. It can empower people to expose wrongdoing, to speak
Mm-hmm.
truth to power. It can bring joy. It can bring fulfillment. It can bring bringing families together with
And you know
screens.
what?
Right.
I think that's how we also discovered the 74%.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's how people discovered that they weren't alone. Native Americans are on there. There was the dance challenge where the whole wipe it down. Okay, I'm
Yeah.
telling. If you've never seen it, the whole wipe it down challenge. I think that people were able to find out. People come on, they say, oh,
Mm-hmm.
I'm the only one that's doing this, or my people are going through this, and people are like,
Mm-hmm.
no,
Mm-hmm.
you're able to. And there's the data side to that. It's like no matter what you're doing, people aren't afraid to say no. I stand with you. I stand
Mm-hmm.
with you on this. There's one child. There is a girl, a woman up there in Alaska, and I am watching them work the seal. I don't what do you call, is it a seal? I don't know what it is. It's a seal. I'm
like
like
like the animal.
it's yeah.
Yeah.
No, but this is their livelihood, and
Yep.
all of the we're talking about. Wait a minute, Angela, I need a word. I need a word. The ritual.
Oh, yes.
of
Yes.
of this, and what this animal in all in they are showing
Yep.
every essence of what they're going to use with this animal. Like they're getting ready to do
Mm-hmm.
this stuff with the blubber to turn that
Mm-hmm.
into oil. And I'm thinking, like, man, I thought that was you talk about 100 years,
Yes.
okay? Because I remember and I don't remember, girl. You don't remember this. You know it because I went to an event where they
Right.
talked about how before we had electricity, you had to have the oil, you know, and like
Yes.
right now, it's the time where it's daytime all the time. So
Mm-hmm.
she's coming on. She just documenting. It's like morning. It looks like morning time. She said, "Yeah, it's 10 p.m." And we're like,
Right, because they
"Wait,
have
what?"
midnight sun, right, in
Right.
Alaska.
And
Yeah.
so her and her sisters, she's documenting this ritual that the family has to
Mm-hmm.
come together, and what every family is doing with this animal. And they're up to the point, okay, well, here's what we're going to do with the blubber, and then we're going to show you what we're going to do with the skin. Well, we're going to take the blubber, we're going to make the oil, and the oil is going to do this, that, and the other. And so much of that is lost to where we don't understand it.
Mm-hmm.
So much of that is
Mm-hmm.
lost where we just simply don't understand. Look how many people are wanting to know about simple things today that have been rituals in another culture or another. Here I am. I make homemade sauce all the time.
Mm-hmm.
That's not my
Right.
heritage is gravy, right?
Right.
Biscuits and gravy. But
Mm-hmm.
now, everybody's like, hey, can you make me a jar of sauce? Can you make me the lemonade?
Mm-hmm.
Little things like that we don't. I had a batch of lemon in here today. I'm afraid to even drink this because these some kind of way these lemons were different, and I don't have anything to recall the lemons being in whatever stage these lemons were in. I'm
Uh-huh.
like, I'm gonna go ahead and make this pot and see what happens. But I think
Right.
I better buy some more because that was a little bit different for me,
Right. Right.
But where do I turn? Where do I turn? Soap making.
Yeah.
I'm getting into the soap making again. 1920, at least know what happened in the last 100 years. Because what do they say? If you don't know your history, you're bound to
Doomed to
repeat it,
repeat it.
doomed to repeat it. So
Doomed.
I woke up this
Let's.
morning, doomed to repeat it. I was like, let me go and find out what these 1920 women
Mm-hmm.
did and survived. And then I'm like, wait a minute, it's 2020. We went from this 14-year-old girl trying to make her way to Chicago to 100 years later, from the south side of Chicago, Michelle Obama
Yeah.
is in the White House. And exactly in the 2020, at the 2020 mark, we may have a black female vice president, let alone.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, y'all can have y'all vice president, but again, we're talking about outcomes, right?
Yep.
That's a symbol. A black female vice president is but a symbol. I
Yeah.
want a lifetime. I'd rather have the lifetime appointment of a
Yep.
SCOTUS,
Yep.
okay? And I'm gonna keep saying that,
I
right?
think you're right on
Because
that. Mm-hmm.
because if you take that as just that simple as it is, you're no different than Drew coming up talking about his flag. Because
Mm-hmm.
that's where they left it. That's where he's stuck there.
Yep.
Now he's saying something different because everybody like, dude, come on, let me move you a couple of yards. We've come a couple of yards from that flag, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, if I am calling for Drew Brees to know more, then I need to know more. I need to go back to 1920 and know that just as many units as there were in World War in the war for men, there was just as many of women. Okay, they might not have been fighting on the battle, but they were fighting as much as they were allowed to. They went as far as they were allowed to be. Um, and we're
Mm-hmm.
gonna get ready to go, but Angela, there is a discussion in my neighborhood group where a person is asking about death, about why is it seems like we mourn differently as far as our
Mm-hmm.
cultures because she is now living a life with many cultures, and it's like, whoa, they had to memorialize somebody, and it's like, wait, everything was different. Everybody had a different way
Mm-hmm.
of how it should be handled, and I they're asking. They said, hey, guys, can we have some dialogue around this? I said, well, I had
Mm-hmm.
a friend ask me just yesterday. They had a colleague who had a death in their family, and culturally, they dealt with it like that. Whereas
Mm-hmm.
we got to hurt, we got to mourn, we got to plan and all this kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And she didn't know how to say condolences because this person was back to work and, going on. I said, well, you follow their lead.
Mm-hmm.
You just
Yes.
simply follow their lead. If we could do that, just stop and think and not have to impose,
Yep.
and that's when it comes to the imposition.
Mm-hmm.
Don't impose. And that's what Drew Brees did. He imposed upon us. It's like,
Yep.
this is how we do things, and I'm sorry I had to keep saying that man's name, but that's, of course,
You're like,
on record right now, the most recent thing.
yeah.
But let's just not let's go forth into this week, just not imposing.
Mm-hmm.
Just don't impose on people. Oh, and by the way, that turkey is about to become a TikTok.
Yay. Yay. Well, I gotta go. I
Yeah.
gotta go. But I think that you and I will make this commitment. I'm not putting a time on it. But you and I will have to do some TikTok thing, right? We're gonna have to do some TikTok thing. We need a
No,
TikTok
and you got to
challenge.
do TikTok thing. I'm on, girl. I'm on TikTok.
So but where they do like two people, like it's like they have two,
No, well,
like we got to do one of those where you pass the mic or something
yeah,
that we will do.
you go out and you pick one and you can do a response video
Yeah.
to what somebody else
Well,
has
then I'll
already
find one of
done.
yours and do a response. That's what I'll have to do. Maybe I'll cook a
The
turkey.
the one that's trending over there is the one we talked about on the show, Tracy Ellis Ross.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I took that one. And it's kind of sad. So I think we moved on from that. But the only other ones I have is I'm doing the food and I'm doing the kitchen one. And where I said, come on in this kitchen, let's make dinner. It's a hyperlapse video of
Mm-hmm.
me prepping for dinner. And then the other one is soap. But I think that's going to be my. I'm not a dancer on TikTok. I did do a couple ended up creating his own TikTok.
Uh-huh.
So I don't know. I don't know what else. Yeah. But I'd
Well,
love to see. What did you think you would dance?
no, I was like, we just do like a
I think
swipe
she froze.
one,
No.
or I'm not gonna,
Yeah, it looks like it
anyway.
froze
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
sound.
Can you hear me now?
There you go. You're back.
Okay. We'll work it out. I'll play around with it, and I do. I have to go, and I
Yeah.
hope though that that just remember what's my leading women wisdom is that even in dark times, it's okay to have moments of joy and to find something, because that's what life is about. That's what we're trying to accomplish here, right? Is
Yeah.
to have life of meaning and to be joyful in that. And so, it's okay to take a minute and laugh. It doesn't mean that you're not taking things seriously, right? It's okay to watch a TikTok or make a TikTok. So anyway, I gotta go.
All
And
right.
all right. Thanks.
All right.
Thanks
Everybody
everybody.
have a great day. Stay right there, Angela. I'm gonna just hit
Okay.
this button and we'll be out.